Hey, speaking of that outside noise, Sophie, your teammate, Sophie came out with a.
Oh, thank you. Have a good day.
Wow. I was going to bet all the money in the world that it was this old gal right here on the left that follows everybody around that shut this thing down. You created another controversy. Yeah, shutting down this press conference because Outkick was not your chosen approved WNBA media. You just created another controversy.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that I would say that I'm educated enough from a scientific standpoint.
Not sure what education has to do with this, to be honest. Not sure what education has to do with it.
It's absolutely getting out of control. It's getting out of control now. Portland Fire head coach Alex Sarama is under fire. Stephanie White is being heavily criticized as well for their comments in regards to men. People who are born as men that transition being able to play in a women's league. Okay. And these coaches are trying to tiptoe around it.
Stephanie White was asked a simple question about one of her own players. Instead of giving an answer, she stood up and walked out of the room, leaving Sophie Cunningham to face the entire fallout completely on her own.
Coach, there was a rally before the game, an anti-trans rally before the game, inspired by Sophie Cunningham. As a member of the LGBTQ plus community, how did you receive her comments and the way it ignited the right wing and anti-trans supporters? And for the players, have you had conversations in the locker room about it?
I'll jump in on that. We do have an organizational statement. I'll read. So neither our organization nor Sophie had any knowledge of this demonstration and no contact with its organizers. Our only goal as a team, whether at home or away, is to win basketball games and make Fever fans for life, and we're united on that mission.
Stephanie White was given a direct question about her own player. But rather than responding, she got to her feet and walked away, leaving Sophie Cunningham to deal with everything that followed by herself.
I was going to bet all the money in the world that it was this old gal right here on the left that follows everybody around that shut this thing down. You created another controversy. Yeah, shutting down this press conference because Outkick was not your chosen approved WNBA media. You just created another controversy. Unbelievable. Do you want to grow this sport or not? Because if you do, you're going to have to let outlets like Outkick, oh my God, that are owned by Fox News, actually ask questions.
There is no need to exaggerate what happened. That is exactly how it unfolded. Stephanie White was directly asked by a reporter about Sophie Cunningham's comments concerning the protection of women's sports. These were the same comments that had already made national headlines. Yet, with the cameras still rolling, White stood up, quietly said something about being finished for the day, and walked away without giving any response at all.
What is your stance on men or athletes who test as biological male participating in women's sports? What's your personal stance?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that I would say that I'm educated enough from a scientific standpoint. I don't ever believe that exclusion is an answer. I just don't. I do think, when we think about various levels of sport, various governing bodies of sport and things that go into that, like I said, I'm not educated enough at the different levels. I know growing up, I played with the boys all the time.
So
there weren't girl sports.
Would you welcome a biological male in WNBA?
Again, it's like, I don't know, when we talk about biological male and scientifically where we are, I think it's a totally different scenario. As I said, I'm not educated enough in terms of transgender and transitioning to give you a smart answer. I would say, though, that I just don't feel like exclusion is an answer, and I think that we need to have deeper...
It would be completely understandable for a head coach to defend one of her own players, especially someone who has been among the team's most effective bench players this season. But instead of saying even one word in support of Sophie, Indiana's coach chose to remain silent and then physically walked away from the situation. That isn't what leadership should look like. Fans noticed immediately because this wasn't some meaningless question asked at the very end of an ordinary press conference. It happened during a week when Sophie's name was already everywhere.
Smart answer. It's literally a yes or no question. So you give a yes or no answer. It's not hard. This is the issue. We're overcomplicating some of the most simple, basic life fundamentals when we have this conversation. And you just see Stephanie White sweating. You see her squirming. You know internally her clock sped up. Yeah. Stephanie White, just a whole lot of word salad. Right.
It wasn't even a complicated question for Stephanie White. A reporter simply asked her about Sophie's comments regarding equity in women's sports. Sophie had already stood firmly behind those comments during 2 earlier interviews. There was no trap involved in the question, and nobody was trying to embarrass her. It was a basic question any reporter could ask a coach about a player who had dominated the conversation all week. And any coach who truly understood her locker room should have been ready with an answer.
And that's where with ESPN, you talked about wanting to protect young girls who shouldn't have to go against biological men. Just can you expand your viewpoint on that?
I mean, I think I said what I said. I think it's kind of common sense. And I think I'll always believe in that. I think it's really important to protect children. And that's little girls who are also involved in that category. And so I stand on what I said, and I always believe that. You know, I don't know. I'm not a very political person, but I do have beliefs. I have morals, and I'll always stand on those and be true to who I am. And I think people are going to take it how they want to take it, but I've never even really said anything about that. And so when it comes just to protecting young girls in sport and women in sport, I feel very strongly about that. I think that's why you have Title IX. That's why you have some of the greats in women's sports. If Title IX and women's sports were protected, then you wouldn't hear about any type of women in sport. And so I think in the future, it's just really important to protect. You know, like I said, I extend love, and I don't dislike anyone. Like, I think there is room for absolutely everyone here, and I think there's room to love everyone. And I truly think when you get people in the same room, you have conversations, you actually have a lot in common with a lot of people. And so I'm there to love. But I'm also there to love biological women. And I think that there are rights that need to be protected. And like I said, I'm going to stand true to that. I'll never falter in my beliefs in that. But I have never once said I hated the trans community. Like I said, I think there's...
White also had plenty of opportunities to give a simple, safe response like a typical coach would. She could have said, "I support all my players and their right to speak," and then moved on with her day. Nobody would have thought twice about it. Instead, she appeared to freeze, offered a short non-answer, and then walked away from the podium altogether, leaving everyone in the room confused and frustrated by what they had just watched happen in front of them.
It's part of a growing league, but we have to be able to insulate. So are you not welcoming people into your league that have differing views? Point of fact, this coach herself came out and said, "No, I don't want you as coach." By the way, you can tell. You notice she hasn't come out and said, "If you're not in blah, 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 I don't think exclusion's the answer." But she's not pushing fans away anymore either, which I think is rather interesting. I'm not giving her any credit at all, because what do you mean by science? He asked you point blank, biological males should be allowed in the WNBA, yes or no? You gave a bullshit cow.
Sophie Cunningham did not specifically name anyone. She didn't attack a rival player or criticize one of her teammates. In response to a direct question from a reporter during a profile interview, she said that she wanted to protect the integrity of women's sports and make sure competition stayed fair for the athletes the league was created to serve. That is where the controversy comes in. There was nothing reckless or hateful in her statement, just an athlete expressing a view that many fans may already quietly share. I
just don't understand why Sophie Cunningham keeps getting crap. I mean, here's the thing. Like, I get it. It's over politics and whatnot. But here's my problem with sports now. Is I remember there was a time where everyone agreed, regardless if you were one side or the other, we're gonna watch sports that just completely ignore politics and get away from it. To put aside our differences and just be honestly civilized with one another. Because I can say from experience, I have different beliefs than probably a lot of you guys who are watching. But that doesn't matter because I still love all people and I value everyone's opinions. As we all should, but honestly, that's just not how today's day and age works. So there's that. But also, I don't think we harp on people for voicing an opinion opposite to ours if they're a celebrity. But then if they voice the same opinion as us and they're a celebrity, we don't say anything. I mean, I can say certainly if any celebrity says something that I don't agree with, I'm not really going to care, because the fact of the matter is their opinion isn't any more valid than ours.
It simply doesn't sit well with people when an adult head coach with a national platform chooses to walk out of a room instead of offering even one supportive word about her own player. It reflects poorly on her, and it makes the organization she represents look even worse. Coaches are regularly asked uncomfortable questions, and professionals are expected to handle them rather than walk away. But this is what makes the entire situation even more painful. This season, the Fever organization has already faced another opportunity to stand behind one of its own players. Since entering the league as a rookie, Caitlin Clark has faced her own share of criticism from the media and other players, while the front office has often remained noticeably quiet when it came time to defend her during difficult moments.